So, before we start, I want to give you 3 questions to keep in mind. And no matter what kind of organization you work for, no matter what area you're interested in, I hope you can use those 3 questions throughout my talk so you can take something from it for yourself. So the first question is, do you love your Mondays? Or are you that kind of person that already gets a little bit of a stomachache when it comes to Sunday evening? The second is, do you have a lot of ideas and do you have an environment at work that supports you for creating innovations? And third is, do you feel focused and fascinated at work, not worrying about any challenges or consequences? So those questions are for you, and now I want to talk to you about affecting flow, the relationship between the perceived team climate for innovations and the experience of flow and worry. So not only due to the fact that we are all here together virtually today, is a matter of fact that change is everywhere. So the world changes, markets change, organizations change, and people and collaboration as we experience it at the moment do also change. So in order to deal with those changes, we need to be innovative. It doesn't matter what area you work in, you need to be innovative. And that always goes along with a certain process. And I don't know whether you can find yourself in that process as well. So I'm curious about what you think in the end. But first, the main fact is that you might come up with an idea. You have an idea when you go for a walk or when you're at home and you recognize it, think about it. And if you feel curious about it and have a certain bravery to talk to other people, then you might grab a coffee and talk to a person at your organization. You might challenge your idea with other people and see what they think. And if you get a positive response and others give you budget to explore the idea, then you might come up with a new service, a new product, a new survey, a new format, a new training, or whatever your expertise is in. And after you deployed your new product or service, then you might do some adjustments, some standardizations, and the 4th step is always improving so you can reach more people with your brilliant new idea. If you have made some positive experiences out of it, then you might come up with another idea, so it starts from the beginning. So on the one hand, we have this innovation process, but on the other hand, we need people like you. So we need people that feel the flow, that can focus, and they do not worry about speaking up with new or maybe some crazy ideas. So flow is described as a state of mind that happens when someone feels optimally challenged. So you fully absorb the current activity, you feel the flow, and you're completely focused. So focus is the positive aspect of feeling the flow. But if the challenge is too high or your environment doesn't support you, you might also be worried. So that is something every organization wants to avoid, because then people do not come up with new ideas. So this effect, there's research evidence that it has a positive effect for all kinds of organizations. To have a state where people feel the flow on the one hand and do not feel the worry on the other hand. So, that being said, we want to put both perspectives together. So on the one hand, we have the team climate for innovations, and on the other hand, we have flow and worry. Research for several decades has been made on team climate for innovations, and a recent study from January 2020 came up with outcomes on individuals, teams, and leaderships, all positive effects of team climate for innovations. But little research has been conducted on the relationship between the team climate for innovations and the experience of flow and worry. So therefore, as part of my PhD, we started a research taking a look on this effect. And another fact is that more and more kinds of innovations come from the technology in all of our social innovation processes. So we took a look on software product development and took a look on the team climate for innovations and how people feel at work. So this put both perspectives together. We could make use of 2 psychometric tests for measuring the team climate and the experience of flow and worry. And we used the team climate inventory for innovations with the courtesy of the authors. And on the other hand, we used the flow short scale also with the courtesy of the authors. So we need to dig a little bit deeper so you understand what we did. For the team climate for innovations, I told you there's a certain process, and maybe you also realize yourself being in this process. So what is helpful for an organization? How can we measure the team climate for innovations? We have 4 different steps, as I told you earlier, and therefore we also have 4 aspects that we want to measure. We want to know whether people do know the vision of our company. We want to know that they know how they can contribute to our vision. Second, for people feeling well to discuss their idea, they need to feel a certain kind of safety. And third, is they need support for innovation. And fourth, they need task orientation. They need to know what to do in order to improve the product. In addition, we also measured the social desirability just to have something like a health check for our numbers. So no doubts that every kind of organization wants to be innovative. And there are a lot of other positive aspects of it if you want to be sustainably successful. So we work with 2 hypotheses. The first one is for members of software product development teams in Germany, there's a positive relationship between the perceived team climate for innovations and the experience of flow. And the second is same, but we only changed the part of worry. So we did a pre-test in March this year, and afterwards we conducted an online survey that contained the 2 scales. In spring this year for 2 months, so the study took place in April and May. I want to give you a little introduction to the target group. So a brief look on the SOCIO-DEMOGRAPHICS. We had 323 clear and clean data sets in the end, and 40% were female, which is a great number when we take a look at diversity. The average participant was 35 years old and worked in a team with more or less 9 team members, and the most represented role were software developers. Most people worked in larger companies, so 200 and more employees. And they were caring for software, online applications, and online media. So if we take a look at the descriptives, we have some norm tables to compare our results to. So on the left-hand side, if you want to follow me with your eyes, you can see the dimensions of the team climate for innovations and flow and worry. And in the right column, I added some help for us for this really short talk. So if you want to ask ourselves, what does it mean? What do the results mean? We can see for our target group that they do not have a clear vision. So the dimension vision is relatively low compared to the norm tables. It's below average. And as you remember, that's the first starting point for coming up with great new ideas. Participative safety is comparably high. Task orientation and support for innovations are kind of average compared to others. And the extent of experiencing flow is comparably high. And in the same hand, people felt worried while doing their work, which is remarkable because all the research that was done has been done anonymously, so people cannot feel any kind of threat by their organization or their boss. So let's take a look and go back to our picture earlier. If we take a look on this cycle of innovations and the feeling and perception of the people, there are some areas that are critical for an organization. So people lack the vision, they are worried, and in addition, although we did not know who they are and did not know what organization they work for, there was a big tendency for people to answer with a high amount of social desirability. So if we take a look on our hypothesis, then we can say, yes, Pearson's correlation showed a significant correlation between the perceived team climate and the experience of flow. And the perceived team climate for innovation accounts for almost 40% of the variance of flow experience, which leads us to accept our first hypothesis. So there is a positive relation between the perceived team climate and the flow experience for our target group. Second, we took a look on worry, and Pearson's correlation showed a slightly positive but no significant correlation between the perceived team climate for innovations and the experience of worry. So in addition, the perceived team climate for innovations accounts only for 4% of the variance of worry, which leads us to reject this hypothesis. So there's no relation between the perceived team climate for innovations and worry. In addition, we checked with moderating variables, for example, for gender, and there were no gender effects, which is a positive result. Let's talk briefly about the limitations. So the high amount of social desirability is really a problem for this study, can be seen very critically. Further test validity should be examined for the flow on the one hand and the team climate for innovations on the other hand. And we also should check in future research whether we had some sequential effects, starting with the team climate questions followed by the others. So what is the summary? Yes, there is a relation between the team climate for innovations and flow, and no, it doesn't count for worry. We found out, and there's a lot of research evidence, that the leadership style also has a strong influence on the innovation atmosphere you have in your organization and the innovation performance as well. So with our current study, which is running until next week, we are taking a look on the leadership climate and psychological safety, since the social desirability is very high and worry was very high. So in order to have a deeper look into that effect, we are at the moment conducting our second study. So what is in for you? The world is changing, your work habits, your collaboration is changing as well. And no matter what organization you work at, whenever you're a team member or you are a leader, make sure you have a vision and everyone else has a vision. So it's a shared, common vision everyone is very clear about. And in addition, for us, it's always helpful to take action so people are not worried at work. Do not underestimate this effect when you want to come up with great new ideas. And because both make not only Mondays great, but also create a great atmosphere at work and make organizations more likely to come up with new ideas, I hope you can take something from it, no matter what, whether you're a teacher or you're a lecturer, you're a university professor or you're a researcher. Always share the vision and make the people feel comfortable at work. Thank you very much.